All right, Peter, great to have you on board. Would you be so kind to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your company?
Yeah, I'm senior director in GoHealth. We're taking care of health insurance on the Medicare Advantage market for over 65 beneficiaries in US. And I'm covering most of the product engineering in our company, starting from the sales, going through enrollments to retention, covering by customer profile and CRM. That would be in short. I'm still kind of hands-on when needed.
So you're basically doing, as people say, wearing many hats, right? Let's start from the few things that I picked up from your interview at Forbes Slovakia, if I'm not mistaken. Peter, you've said that the most important leadership skill is listening. What does listening well look like in a real engineering week?
When you're a manager, you are kind of like the therapist. Like a lot of people can be kind of like a sadists, like watching how the teams are really struggling to move on and see like how they behave under the stress. But sometimes it's important to like interview and say like what's the problem. Like people will tell you a lot of things, and if you will not get it and translate it into their language and make sure that they are feeling listened, they usually going back to struggling. So if we are listening to like what they have like problem with or where they're struggling, or if they're not feeling comfortable within a group of people, like I have multiple teams under my control now. Sometimes for a few people it's like time to basically switch the team because of the chemistry or something just changed. And if people can see that you're actually listening and their problems are basically resolved or remediated, and anyhow it's easier for them to listen to you as well and basically follow the lead. So that how would I like describe the proper listening means to like really got the information, not just like I'm listening you but I don't mean it. It's not good. Like building the trust is basically the main point.
What's a belief about engineering leadership you hold today that you didn't hold 3 or 5 years ago?
The very first thing that came to my mind is like I had a huge ego, let's say, and I was not able to like hide it behind my actual skills. So it was always racing against the skills and the ego, which is usually a big issue for like people with some aspirations, let's say. So now I'm able to successfully hold it back when it's needed, but unleash it when I really need to show up that I am on top of things. Let's say that's one of the things. Another one was how to trust people around me. Like when I was doing like individual contribution, it was more about like if I will fail myself. As I was pretending to delegate things, I was also thinking that I'm delegating, but I was not, because in the end I was really wrapping things up by myself. So now I'm in the situation that I build the trust, and that's where we are circling back to the listening. That I have people I can trust to, and they're not doing everything 100% because we are human being, right? But I can go sleep well having my time free and still expect that people will do what they're supposed to do without my involvement, like direct involvement. So I'm always verifying things because we need to, trust without verification is kind of naivety.
Peter, you've spoken also about building T-shaped teams, right? How do you make that real day to day, especially when delivery pressure pushes people into narrow roles?
I, s- I think it's still life, especially in this time of AI. But for me, even like 5 years ago, like roles, like titles became obsolete in a sense of like every team needs to do the job to deliver things, right? It contains of some common aspects of work we need to do before or while we're delivering things, and the role will not change it. So my idea was to bring to the team the variation of it. Like, don't look at your role, at your title as something which is must. Let's talk about this is your specialization. So you're right, you are good at something, front end, back end, QA, automation, whatever. Let's bring this into the team. So the team is considered as like a team or like collection of team members which are delivering the product. But the responsibility of the QA, for example, is not held by the one person, but the whole team. So now if the team will lost QA, they will not need to wait until they will have like backfilled some QA back. They will still deliver. It will be slower, but they will still deliver because the responsibility of the QA and the verification itself, it's still responsibility of the team, not of the individuals. So the T shape is mostly about like, let's keep the specialization in a team because we need to have specialists and experts. But let's spread this across the team and even beyond, between teams, via community of practices and everything, and make people not be afraid of changes. Like AI is a kind of monster for a human being at the moment, that people are you know like scared about their positions and everything. But the industry was always evolving and changing. You know, like we started with the Pascal and Delphi, doing a lot of stuff back then on the C and C++, Windows Loop and everything. Then we went through all the enterprise stuff like C# and Java. Then comes to Golang and Rust and other stuff. I remember like making web application in PHP, which was not even like objective as it is now. So it's like always evolving. And if you will just focus on like UI, it was always rapidly changing. So many frameworks and libraries, you were not able to follow all of them. You were not. So it's the same. So the T-shape for me means like, let's be best at one thing, but let's increase your focus on other areas, because who knows if you will not need to shift to left or right.
Let's carry on. Peter, how do you translate business goals into engineering clarity across time zones? We just mentioned, US, Slovakia.
Well, so most of our work is on Atlassian, so Jira, Confluence, and everything. And that basically covers most of the things, including roadmap, some discovery work, the whole delivery, like everything is pushed lately to Jira and Atlassian and their tools, instead of like, we had a bunch of Excel files back then and PowerPoints and so on. So we are trying to utilize as much as we can from the tools which are supposed to work with that. Like there are plenty of them, but we are usually trying to be like as much offline as we can. But if we need to discuss things, like we have a syncs and some demos and everything, we have like internal statement like being available between like 2 hours or so. I don't know like how much of the time frame it is, that we are all available to basically have the overlap between those 2 time zones. So those are like 2 hours where you usually have a calls, right? So it depends on like what you're actually doing, what is your impact, and what's your area of control. So some people have more calls after the lunch, like me. Some are less because they are more individual contributors. So it's easier for them like to do on the task offline. But most of our teams right now are collocated. So it's not that hard. It's It's more tough when there is some cooperation between multiple teams, which needs to be aligned. But we somehow managed to discuss things. Like we are using public channels to discuss things. So if I will go out, I will write some output to like, this is what we discussed here, this is what we did. Let's continue, let's take it over from here. And the same applies for the US folks. They will just keep us posted about like what happened and whatnot. Uh, well, like this culture is still kind of dynamic. Not everybody likes, be transparent and public on the channels because of whatever reasons. So sometimes I just need to like push back on like, oh, another chat. Let's not do that because that's not the way we should propagate information between the teams. So we want to be as much transparent as we can.
Mm.
So those are basically two tools, I would say, or approaches we are actually following to make us all align with what's happening.
Is there a way? I mean, what kind of questions do you want your engineers to ask you? Or let's put it that way: what kind of questions tell you that the culture or there is something is not healthy? There is something is going on.
Well, actually, it's most recent, and I went through the skip levels with all of my transient reports, and my like I'm not fan of like formal interviews at all. Maybe that's why I didn't go through the document you sent to me, but some people do. So I have like 4 questions that kind of help them to start a conversation. First one is how they're doing. That's the first one. Like, we're going back to listening, like understanding like how they feel. Another one is like how they see the team and their mood from any angle. Like, I keep it open, so it can be like efficiency, it can be mood, it can be like actual tiredness on or anxiousness or point of view or some changes we just made because changes are happening every day. Every day, I mean like frequently. And the third one is how do they think the team sees them? To play kind of like self-reflection exercise. So to understand like how do they think the others see them. So I can go and collect some inputs from others from their team and figure out whether the team is or is not corrupted within. Like it really helps me to understand whether there is something going on, because sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm pretty good, I believe," but from the other side, I got some information. Well, now lately, I feel like he's struggling because he might have some personal problems or something. And those are things that I will need to address with their report, with my direct reports, to be handled. And also, I'm trying to like kind of push them to discuss those things on the retro, because that's the important thing to like sometimes the hard things need to be said out loud, unless they can be kind of resolved. Like unless we will say we have a problem, we don't have a problem at all. So that's what I'm trying to teach them. And the fourth is basically give me some feedback on your report, even myself, if I'm kind of impacting them. It's hard to get some information about myself because of the leather stuff sometimes, but I also taught few people to be kind of direct and don't feel threatened by myself, or that they will be like retaliated from my side or somehow. It really helps to spend time with them, like managing some tabletop game sessions and everything. Like be close to them, speak with them as a human being, not as their superior. So some people are already open to me and say like, oh, I see that you were close to overburn because you spend a lot of time doing this kind of stuff, and sometimes it's good to hear like if somebody appreciate the facade I'm building in front of the teams, to not fall down all of the domino pieces down there. So those are like four things. I'm keeping the conversation kind of formal, but once I will say those 4 questions, it usually end up like focusing on few areas they really want to. So I'm open to any question. So there is no question I want them to ask me. It's more about like make some kind of ice breaking stuff to let them speak.
Great, great. Thank you, Peter. Also, one thing that I picked up from one of your blog posts: the CRM in less than 90 days.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about this. On the CRM delivered in 90 days, what were the hardest trade-offs, if there are any, that you had to make?
Well, we built things in a rush. So it not all things were built as we originally planned to. So we built a lot of, well, not built, we created a lot of tech debt that we needed to go after we released the CRM. And the trade-off, or the impact of that trade-off, was that people felt tired and frustrated because I don't really know any engineer who wants to keep some tech debt behind the scenes. So it was kind of things that we had to do, and I would say that's the biggest trade-off. But it's nothing in comparison of what we achieved in the end. Like we integrated GraphQL with the Supergraph for the whole company. So we built like most of the domain models during this period. So we integrated new technology in almost no time, if you will imagine, like we did to build like customer profile and CRM, which is fed by customer profile. So it was a huge thing. So it's obvious that we had to trade off some tech debt, which some is still there, some is not. But I don't see it as a tragic thing at the moment, especially if we will go back to AI.
Should you face a similar sprint, 90-day sprint, what would you change first?
It would
Having
not
that
take
experience.
90 days. It would take less. Like the main thing is like we committed to something, and it was so big that we didn't notice that we are leaking from its side of the scope. So I would go into like such a big things, but I know that we will need to basically close tightly the scope. So if we want to make something in addition, we will need to go through the proper planning and estimation process again, because it might cause a lot of people overburn next time. So
GoHealth works across a broad stack, right, Peter? Java, Kotlin, Spring. How do you decide when to introduce something new?
when is needed. That would be the simplest answer. I will not speak for everybody else, but for myself only. I believe those like languages, frameworks, they're supposed to work on some things. So they have been built for some reason. We can use Kafka as an example. It was built by LinkedIn as like having like the queue for the journal of the logs and everything, and evolved into something else, which is sometimes used, sometimes misused, but we are all using it. Before we had like JSON queues and everything. So I believe every tool, every library, every framework needs to be used with all awareness of the context we want to provide. Uh, I usually see people working with the Spring Boot, and I'm not calling them like Java developers anymore. I'm calling them Spring Boot developers, because if I will write a code in Java, a lot of people will not understand the point of how it's built. Like the actual paradigms within Spring Boot, for example, is hidden behind the scenes of the magic. So people who didn't work with the magic before in a pure Java, they don't really understand how it works under the hood, unless they will need to deal with some issue within the framework itself, which is less occurring at this time than it was like 10 years ago, for example. So as I said, like there are a lot of stuff, a lot of things building. Even with the AI, I've seen few new programming languages promising better compilation time, better static analysis, better runtime, and everything, which is great. But let's think about like when we want to use it and for what, right? So instead of thinking how we build something, first we need to understand why we are building something and actually what, right? And then is like the third hidden question: when we need it.
Peter, where have you personally seen AI create real leverage beyond demos inside engineering or operations?
I think it's the great tool for people who knows how to use it. I think it can, and we already see it increase efficiency of people who can really provide the right context. With the right context, it can be kind of cheap, and with the efficiency of the one using it, it can be even beneficial more than like few folks at some point. I will not go into like concrete stuff, but we are utilizing a lot of AI agents in a company, like starting from the Microsoft and going through like engineering stuff. I'm kind of cynical about AI and like impact on human beings. Personally, I see the benefits all the way around. What I feel like at the moment, I don't feel like there is something that should not ever be automated at all. I don't think so. That is something maybe I will get to some point, but at the moment it's not even feasible. But I would rather just turn the question in a different way and tell you like how I feel these will affect industry instead, like the engineering industry, because that's basically the evolution of how we will see like what will be automated last in the end. So what the actual engineer does is sit at the keyboard, write a code, write some unit tests. If we are lucky, they will write a unit test first and then do implementation, but not everybody is that lucky. And basically, click some buttons, go through CI/CD, which was already automated, but it was not AI, but we already had the automation in place to deliver things to production or some environment, whatever. At some point, we have a monitoring, which is automated. We might have some synthetic jobs to test whether our application is working or not, to get some signals if we have a problem or not, to basically promptly react on any potential incidents on production. So how the AI approach will change the whole work of the engineering, it will be less about how we write the code. Like if I will tell agent to write me a code that will accept A, B, C as an input and expect something as an output, the most important piece will be verification. So from one side, it will be analysis, design, and architecture, which will become, at least for now, part of the human being job. We will need to have a seniors to basically describe what we need to do, how, on whatever level, from architecture to design, and even the implementation standpoint, using like agents, MD definitions, and some architecture record definition or something. And then we have the verification, which we can automate for sure, but we also need somebody from the analysis standpoint to figure out like how we want to test it, what is the contract between the code and the actual product we are expecting? What is the actual acceptance criteria we want? So we might use AI to basically generate the ACs, but it's still not at the stage it can do it without human being, right? It's too technical, too uh, line to like specific context, that if we will need to do something specific for a human being, like the feeling of the application, it's still not there. So I may imagine like having two agents working together, maybe more. One is writing the code, one is writing the automation, one is doing a code review for me, or helping me, like, say, oh, this feels odd. There is some, I don't know, security vulnerability. We need to take a look. But the analytics of the stuff, like, it's still not be fully automated. So I would say like the last piece that will be automated will be the analytics and design.
What's a lesson you've learned the hard way as a director of engineering at GoHealth? Something that you wish someone told you earlier, perhaps.
Nobody really prepared myself to to the to the loneliness of like being director. Like, as I was part of the teams, I had a peer around and we spent some time, and now my peers has changed. The group of people I need to speak with is completely different than it was before, right? And sometimes I don't even have some relationship with them, as I am, my most trigger is like having results and relationship. That's what motivates me. It pushed me back a bit at the very beginning, like, how can I go through it without having a friends around me? I mean, like job friends to like keep me up and basically motivate me to do things and so on. So nobody told me that I will need to find the different most 15. Like every single person can comprehend like 15 people, like close people around that can work with them. So I had to change those 15 people and push those from my actual 15 to be my 30 instead of 15. And it was kind of something I didn't know.
If someone reads our piece of work and wants to understand GoHealth Slovakia engineering better, what's one topic you would want them to remember? I mean, you may use this opportunity just to make a pitch or share something that I've missed here.
I stick with what I said at my first blog. I believe like listen to each other is the most important thing. We still need to be human beings and reflect that reality to our work. Like we can pretend that the people who are delivering the value are not human beings. It's just resources and they don't need to be listened to. But it will not work. It will never let me impact people outside of my organization to make them convince them to do something because it makes sense, because it will help them or help me or help the company itself, right? So even if I have like few people below me with my report regarding the network and the ability to listen to issues or challenges people encountering, I was also able to help outside of my boundaries to move them forward or shift left or right. So I would make this as the pain point of this, like listening to each other, making everybody and treat everybody as a human being. So that would be the message from my side.
Awesome, Peter. That was great. Дякуємо. Дякуємо пекне.